Hey, what's good everybody? So a couple people that watched my video where I assembled the connectors for the tail light harnesses that I built, they wanted to know about the crimping tool that I used for the little factory connector pins for the GT150 connectors. What the tool is a Ratcheting Crimper Kit from Snap-on. And I don't know if you can see that, but we used the H-Jaw open barrel terminals. That's what was used for those little pins. So it comes with some other stuff for insulated, non-insulated, and open barrel terminals. So I bought this as an upgrade from another ratcheting crimping tool that I had from Paladin. And the reason I upgraded was not only because the Paladin seemed to be really aggressive and destroy more terminals than it would crimp, but interchanging the dies was a pain in the ass because it had set screws that had to be taken out to change the dies. Now, I don't know what it is about little tiny set screws, but it always seems that when I take them off, one disappears on the floor into the abyss. So this was more for the quick change ability. Now, as to how often I have to do a quick change, real quick, I mean, it doesn't come up that often, but it's good to have. So, what we're going to do, let's see how these ratcheting crimpers stack up against this kind of crimper and this kind of crimper. Got a small lead of wire. Go ahead and strip about a 1/4 inch of the insulation off of it. Seems pretty solid. I mean, that sucker really nailed that. So, all in all here, I mean, they did a pretty good job, all three of them, did a pretty decent job. But this one seemed to have the most aggressive crimp. I mean, it really smashed that guy down pretty good. I mean, which is what you want. You want a really good, crimp. So let's go ahead. We're going to repeat the test with these kind of terminals. So let's see how everything went. So these are from the Snap-on crimpers. This is from our super fancy crimpers. Now you can tell in the little fork terminal, this guy, the end's a little bit distorted. The crimp kind of went off center when I used it in the tool. And then for our wire strippers that have a convenient crimping feature, ended up with this. So the next question would be, well, how good are the crimps? Well, let's give them all each a little pull test and we'll see how they stack up. So on the opposite end of the connector, I'm just going to go ahead, smash my vice grips down on it, take some channel locks. Let's see if we can pull this thing apart. No. That ain't coming off of there. Now let's try it with the strippers that have the convenient crimpers in it. See how that stacks up. Well, all in all three tools gave crimps that I could not pull apart with some pliers. Pliers on the connector and pliers on the wire. And you can tell I don't know if you can see that. Right there. That's where I really smashed into it with the channel locks trying to pull the connector off, and I just couldn't do it with all three. If you were looking for crimpers, I mean, which one would you buy? It's really hard to say. I mean, it depends on, you know, what you're going to be using them for. I know that these two crimpers will never be able to crimp this kind of pin, but those pins are something that most people won't be crimping. So for that, you know, I would rule this out. These two kind of messed up the ends of their forks. This one doesn't even look like it's, you know, compressed all the way, but it did pass a pull test. The Blue Point is pretty versatile. It can do the insulated and non-insulated. It also can do the fancy pins like I showed you in those Delphi connectors. This is more or less my go-to tool for doing stuff actually in the car. It's really easy to orient the pins to get the stake on the right side. This is kind of high leverage, and it does do an awesome job, especially on the small, not the yellow ones, but the smaller ones, you know, the blue, what are they, 14, 16 gauge, which you'll more commonly use for, say, adding grounds for whatever, your remote start or something under the dash. And this is debatable because a lot of people said, you know, you don't want to use this. With this kind of crimp, you do not get the leverage that this one gives you. I really just use this for a wire stripper. Come back behind it with this for my crimps. Like I said, do I use the Blue Point in the car? Not really. It's a little bit awkward to use. So all in all, which crimper would I recommend? Well, I would recommend this one. And the reason is it's easier to use. It's easier to orient your stake right. You know, if you're working underneath the dash and you're, you know, trying to get the job done. This is a little bit more user-friendly, and it costs a lot less than the Blue Point does. I find myself working up underneath the dash a lot, whether it's installing different components or, you know, repairing factory wiring. This is kind of awkward to get in tight spaces, which is why mostly what I did use it for, like I said, was these little OEM pins for the OEM connectors. Usually when I'm doing a repair like that, you know, that involves these kind of pins, the wiring harness is prepped outside the car. So the size of this and maneuvering it up in tight spaces isn't really there. But let's just say I wanted to crimp a ring terminal for a ground wire underneath the dash. I mean, this guy right here is going to be easier. So what do I pack with me in my universal toolkit? Well, I think you guys seen these two in the automotive tools video, the first one. And strip, crimp, and that's it. And this thing doesn't roll with me. Had it not been for these terminals right here that I sometimes do work, because I do a ton of automotive work. That's what I do for my career. That's what I do a lot of on the side. I probably would not buy it. I can do just as much stuff with this as I can with this. Now, I don't know who makes this specific brand. This was given to me by a friend of mine because he saw me crimping with this and said, whoa, you don't want to use that. And we had a nice argument about it, and we compared crimps, and he turned me on to this, and that's what I use now. But I think Channel Lock makes these. I've seen Snap-on makes these. These are beats the fuck out of me. So we're going to say the Red and Black Handle Tool Company is who made it. But the principle will be the same. You're going to have your two most common sizes here. And I think the little one does do the little red terminals, but who really uses them? So there you have it. Some crimping tools. So what did we learn today? Well, we learned that if it wasn't for these kind of Delphi connector pins, I probably wouldn't even own this tool. I can do just as much stuff with this. Alright, so I just went online, looked up some latest prices. Snap-on Direct on their website, pwc48 goes for 89 bucks. Might be a little bit more on the tool truck. The Channel Lock 909, which would be the equivalent to these guys right here, 22 bucks. And this one, which was just a rebranded by Matco Tools. I don't know who actually made the real version. This was $16. So for you guys at home, if you're not going to do these any kind of fancy crimps like these little pins right here for the Delphi connectors, the Channel Locks are the way to go. You would get more versatility out of the Blue Points, but at a price difference of about 60 bucks, in my opinion, it's not worth it. Hope you guys learned from this. Like I said, this was based on questions that people have messaged me with, which I always appreciate. So stay tuned for more automotive stuff, whether it's the Trailblazer repairs, some tools, talking about more automotive rip-offs that are out there, and just anything automotive. I mean, that's what my channel's all about. So if you like what you see, subscribe to my shit.